most of you need this for the project. And also you should know about how you can read from a file, because sometimes most of the applications need how to deal with the files. Tell me, Jason, have you already started with your project with your team? And just I want to know that if you have already started.
Actually not yet. It is having hard time to contact them. It is very slow yet, but I just keep trying to reach them.
Yeah, but you should be aware about the deadline. You have less than 1 month about this.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I'm telling you because people who's going to watch the video later, they have also to understand this. And you need to make a presentation.
Yes.
So the presentation can be in the last lecture. There will be no lecture at that time, last meeting, or you can record it offline, which means that you record the presentation and then you share with me the video link. You know about this?
Yeah. But do we all need to be participate for the presentation?
Yes. This is the aim. I want to be well sure that all students are involved in this. So you can do it when you finish yours. So, for example, you are 4, 5, or 3 persons in the project. So all of you will be involved, and each one has to present a part. Hi, Cora.
Yay.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello, Jason. I'm good.
What about the family?
They're fine. They're on vacation.
Yeah, it's not easy now for you.
Yes.
You don't have vacation, they have vacation.
Yes.
Yeah, it's springtime. I hope that also the weather will be shifted to spring weather.
It's raining.
Yeah.
The whole morning it's raining.
Yeah, I hope that today it was somehow shine. I can see there was a sunshine, but was some clouds, so it was shining cloudy. I don't know if this is correct to say it. Yeah, but it was not bad. We see the sun today, but I hope that the kids during this spring vacation, they can see the sun because they take vacation to go outdoor. Kura, I was talking with Jason about the project. Have you already started with your teammate with the project?
With 155, sir.
I said, have you already started the project with your teammate?
In Comp 155, we already discussed what topic we should do, but we're not started the actual programming of the project. We're just communicating each other.
Yeah, but you should be aware about you have less than 1 month to do it. And Jason has already asked me a question about presentation. So either you will make presentation in the last live session, it's up to you. I will be happy to see it with all your teammates. If you are not going to do it in the live session, you should record a presentation. You know about this?
Yes, sir. Like the other subject last sem.
Yeah, so just so your teammate and for all people who's going to watch this video later, you should be aware that you need to make a presentation. I want to be sure that all of you are involved in the project and all of you have already worked. To just record video, you can make a teammate using here Microsoft Teams. You can have a meeting and then record the video, and when you finished, either you will upload it to YouTube or just keep it in the Microsoft Teams and share with me the link. I'm going to watch your video. There is a lot of videos I should watch. Cora, before we start today's lecture, do you have any question before all lectures or any feedback you want to share with us?
No, for now. I don't have any questions.
Do you have any feedback you want to discuss it concerning the course material?
And I don't have any for now.
No. It's just to be sure that everything is good with you and with the others. So that's why I'm asking you. So
Okay.
there's nothing, then that's good. We are on the good track.
Yeah, I try to what do you call this? I try to watch the videos if I'm not
Okay.
able to attend the class.
No worry. Yeah, I know. And thank you that you are here with us. It was a pleasure to meet you and also Jason today. This was make more interactivity in the class, and this is will give it's more beneficial for all of us, for me, for you, for all other students. So it was a pleasure to have you all here. Let's start with today's lecture. Today we'll talk about file handling. File handling is talk about how we can read and write in a file. We focus more on the text file. I think that most of you need this. Maybe in your project we need to have, because so far we have already discussed different data structure like array list, linked list, array. So all the data that you will save it in this data structure will not be anymore saved in a permanent way. So when you will shut down your software, all data will be gone. And sometimes there are some fixed data, which mean data they are not changeable data, even you will put it in a text file. And there is another way to store data, which is database system. It's out of the scope of the course. But at least using text file, you have the opportunity to save data permanently, which means save data in a file in your computer. So today we are going to learn how we can create this file, how we can read from this file, how we can write on this file, and how we can delete this file. So, so as I said, we are going to learn how we can create a file, create file information, which we get, file information. Sometimes we need some information. How we can write to a file, and how we can read, and then finally how we can delete this file. Okay, first let's start how we can create a file. Since from the first day we talk about object-oriented, which means that for us, any method we needed, since we need to create a file, or so there should be a class we have to deal with this, like here FileWriter class that we'll see it later. And also we need some predefined methods that are defined in these classes. If you remember when we talked about before about input, how we can get input from the user, and we have already from the first day deal about with the output, which is we use input-output stream. It was a class that we use it. Here there is another class, we name it FileWriter. It can be seen as it extends this output stream, which means that all the functions the output stream can be used by this class, plus additional function that can be used also. FileWriter, it is a constructor for this class. Again, we are just using this class to benefit from all predefined methods in this class. Like always, so we will have the basic constructor, and since we talk about polymorphism in Java, which means that you can have different behavior, which for the same method you will have different behaviors. So in this case, FileWriter, we will have different constructor for this. One of these constructor is a string file name that most of the time we will use it, which means that we will pass the file name for the file that we want to create. If it doesn't exist, so, and if it exists, we can read from it. And again, when I talk about the file name, if you will pass the file name as it is, if it doesn't exist, it will create it in the same folder where your Java file is being executed. Or you can pass a complete pass where you want to size a file, but to be sure, there are sometimes you should be aware if you want to give another pass rather than where your Java file it is. There is another concerning about access restriction. So in this case, when you will execute your Java file, it should be executed as an admin, or you have to add a piece of code to enforce the permission. However, if you are going to save this file in the same place, in this case, there is nothing to do it, just you can go ahead and pass this file name in this case. So before we'll go to the, so first, before we'll go to the FileWriter, so we have to create the file object, which is another class. So in the file object, we pass new file, and then, okay, we said this object is from the class file. And then using this file, we can call the method create a new file. We can call it in this case, if you want to do it in this way. So in this case, either you will use this, we will see it again. This is a FileWriter for writing. Maybe I started this early, but even though we can now talk about it, and later we will talk about it later. I'm just giving an example. But before we're going to write a file, first we have to create this file, and there is another class, which is a file class. This file class is talk more about how create the file itself, the file object. And here we will create a new file, as we can see here, new file name text. Again, this is FileWriter. We will see it later to write in the file. So here, when I said create this FileWriter to this file, however, here, before I will use a FileWriter, I have to go to create the file itself. So the FileWriter has to deal with the existing file. However, before this, we have to go with the FileWriter file, which is here, file, my object, new file. Here I use a method create a new file. Again, as I talked when I talked about before about the FileWriter, if you want to give a complete pass, and the same when you want to create the file for the first time, you can also give it as a complete pass here. Or in this case, you will just write this file name, and you will use a method create a new file. This method is already defined in this class file. This method will return Boolean. So Boolean means that either to true or false. If the file is created, it will return true, and I can ask to this get name. Again, my object is an object, that will point to this file. Okay, so else it already exists, no need to create in this case because it already exists. You can go ahead and use the FileWriter to write in this file. And like always, we can pass an exception, which means by, you can see this is, we have already discussed before about, we can make a try, and then I make an exception. And then if there's something, I have to print an error that there is an exception taking place in this case. Let's show you this file. Let's go ahead and do it. I think we can do it. Run the code. Take time. Yeah, I don't know. This is Apache. It seems that I have many applications running.
Sir, question.
Go ahead.
The created file will be in the Apache server, or on the C where we can find the file?
No, Apache, it's nothing to do with the Java one.
Okay.
Apache, it is a local host for the PHP one. So, but the NetBean is the editor or the IDE, which means it is a place where we are going to write the code.
Okay.
However, this IDE has to talk with the compiler of the language that you are writing. So the Apache, we can use it for PHP. In this case, the Apache NetBean has to talk with the Apache server to execute the PHP code and save the PHP code there. Also, it can talk with the Java virtual machine. So that NetBeans, when you will install the add-ons, which means there is an add-ons you want to install it, so it will automatically install the Java virtual machine. The Java virtual machine, it has a Java SDK, which means that it has a Java compiler and all library you needed. You got it?
Yeah.
So now your question about where to save, it's up to you. It's not like Apache.
Okay.
When you talk about Apache, it will tell it is a must to save it in a special place because you are dealing with a local host, and the folder like htdoc for the Apache is your local host. However, here, no, you can save it in any place. So if I will create a new project here, by default, it will save it in a place which is here. You can see here it's saving, but you can change it.
Okay.
So it's up to you where to save it. But because the NetBeans already know that there is the Java virtual machine where it is, so the NetBeans will talk with the Java virtual machine in order that it can compile your code and execute it. Because any higher level programming language need a Java compilation. Sorry, any higher level programming language like Java need its own compiler. In this case, it is a Java virtual machine. Go ahead, Kura.
Okay, so the file to be created, like in text file, that text file, it will not be saved in this Apache folder, right?
You mean it will not be saved in the Apache? No, it will be saved in the same place where it is this file here.
Okay, like in C++ that we create last sem?
Yes, in C++, even though in C++ we will give a pass. If you will not give a pass, it will create in the same place.
Okay, thank you.
So this is here, yeah, sure, welcome. So if we return back, let me first, here we talk about creating this file. Just let me write the code here. I will show, I keep it this because we need it. So again, we said we are going to create, this is the file we got the image. If you want, we can do a new one now. We name it new file Java class. Let's name it lecture 9 as I name it here in the example. Finish. So as I said, first you should be aware that which one to import, because we are going to talk with the file class to create a file. So I have to make an import. So we name it java.import.file. So yeah, so here it is. So if you are going to use any predefined class, we should import this at the beginning before we go start creating an object from this class. And since we are going to make an import exception, so we are going to make an import java.import exceptions, IO exceptions in this case. Now let's go to the class now. So I should have a main method. I can do all my class of public. I'm writing it from scratch in order to show you how we can do it from scratch. Void main string like this, and then I can make arguments, and then I will, this is a main method where I will, since I will not create a new class, I create a class just to put it in the main method, so I use all predefined, I will use object from predefined class like the file. So now I have to create the file object. I will say file, I name it object, like I will name it there, my object. I can name it whatever it is, this object. So I have to create first an object from this class. I said new file. So here I will give it like, for example, here based on what we are going to name it Quora. So I now, here, this is file also. So I have to create it. If I didn't give it a pass, I just named file name dot text. So in this case, it will create the file in the same path where my project it is. Again, my project it is here. It would be here. So if I have to go to NetBeans, users, NetBeans, see users, user, NetBeans, what is the path of it? See users, document, sorry. Document. And then NetBeans, here it is. So lecture 9, it has nothing here, just the source code of my code, which is I'm doing. So I expect now that the file will be created here after I created it. So since I didn't give a complete path, just I give a file name, so it will be created in the same place where your Java source file it is. So this is now I create an object from class file. This object I give it, I said there is a constructor at the beginning. Maybe I should start with the file class, but I started with a FileWriter class. Whatever it is, we will use it FileWriter class later. But just to show you that there is something writer that we can use it. However, the main class that we should start with it is a file class. I have to create an object from its type that will point to my file, my physical file, and my hard disk in this case. So, but since creating a file sometimes an input-output operation can have an error, so we said that we have to consider this, which is make an exception. This is we have discussed before. So I put a try here function. Sorry. I will put a try function as we did before, and then, and since I have try later, I will make a catch one. So I have a try, I have a catch, I have to do it. So just keep it now like try and a catch. Here I can discuss input output exception. It should be, since what we expect is an input output exception from here. And then this input output, when this will happen, we will write later what we expect from this input output, like the system dot out dot println, sorry, print. So this is output print. We will take output, let's suppose is exception, there is an error happen. Occurred or happened, an error happened. So we check first. This is the try and this is a try. So what more now? We create a file, and then what we have to do, we have to check now to create the file. So we create the file object, but we are going to execute the method, we name it create file. So now we create an object, but in order to execute the creation of the file, there is a method in the file class. We have to use it, which is the create file in this case. So I will name it as file. I put it in, as in the example, I put it in if method, which is say that if there is an error during, I have to, if everything okay, just I can print out the name of this file. Else I will say maybe this file was not created. If it was not an error, but we are going to create it. However, this file already exists. So I will make it like this. We name it my object, which means here. So we name it if my object. I create if my object dot create a new file. Mean that if this takes place and everything okay about if my object create new file, this is everything okay with this, which means that it's being already executed. It return true for us. Then I said system, because this can be returned false, true or false. So if I said if my object create my object, mean that it is returned true. In this case, I said system.out.println. I can set creating file is successfully done or file is created. But I can also return back the name of the file. How I can do it? An object that point to the file, which is my object in this case. I said my object dot. There is a function during this lecture. We will know more about the function that for the file, which is get name. You can see it here. So what I'm doing, so I put this operation under try because I expect maybe there is an error, so I can catch it here. And then the user can know that there is an error. In order that the program will not stop, it will show that there is an error with the file creation. And then I said, okay, system.out.print as file is created and give it name. Else, in this case, else it doesn't work. I would say, so if it doesn't work, which means that normally if there is an exception, an error, it will go here. But if there is no error, however, the file already exists, so the file will not be created. This will return false. Not an error, it returns false. Again, not an error, it returns false. An error to be accepted at the end, so it returns false that this file was not created. So in this case, what I can do, I will make else, which means that system out println. You can print here that file is already exist. Okay. So retaining here, nothing here. So I think we are done. If there is an error, you can see it here. This is a try. So try from here to here. If there is an exception, we will get an error happen. So when we talk about a try, first we have to use a file object. I name it my object, and then I execute a method new file, which will create a file. This method is being already defined here. This is why I create an object from here. And it returns true or false. True, the file is created. False, the file it already exists. I have a lot of typo mistake here. Okay. So now let's run it. I run another one, so I should run this, sorry. Yeah, file doesn't exist. So yeah, maybe I run another one. I have to run this. Yeah, file is created, file name text dot text. Let's go now here, refresh, you see it, it was created. It is a text file, it has nothing here, there's an empty one. So now the next step is returning back to the lecture. The next step is, so we created a file using file method. We're using file class. And then we execute the method. Now, this is what I have already begun here, FileWriter class. So maybe I have to use it later to write it from the file. But before I will use it, let's talk more about what different functions we have it here in this file method. File class, sorry, again. So here, this file class, when I create an object, so far I have learned about create a new file. And if you see there is another method named getName, it will return the name of the file. Is there more method in the file class that we can use it? Yes. Like can read, can write. This is we have already discussed it. Length, get absolute. Can read, which means that is this file can be read or there is any restriction? So are you able to read on this to write on this file or there is any restriction? Again, get absolute, it will return the absolute of this file, which means that the complete path in this case. Get name, it returns the name as we see it, and length, it returns the size. If I will go to another example, again, the file name we already have it. The file now we have the file we already created it. So I have created another class, another example. Like always, if I want to go and talk with the file, I have to create an object from the type file, and this object will point to this file. Java, not like C++. In C++, we have the concept of a pointer. However, in Java, we have to create an object that to point to another object. So we have the physical object, which is the file. So I created another object, my object from the file, to point for this one. So now my object will point to the file. It already exists. So I make a condition before I will double check different parameters. I should be aware about if exists. So exist, it is a function from in the file class that will return if this exists, true, false. So if exists, which is this is true, else the file doesn't exist. So if it exists, the file name will get the name. Absolute, I can write, can read. This is the output what we will expect. Let's go ahead and try it to our file that we have just created it now. Returning back to here. We will read this get information, this. I will not write it again. I write for you the first one. So we have already created it. We just created it. So I'm now have to execute get on this file. That double checks the output now. The name of the file is file name.txt. The absolute path, you can see it. This is the complete path. The file is writable. Yes, true, yes, there is no restriction. And since it is an empty, the file size is 0. This is to the file that if I will now go there and delete the file. But now execute this again. The file doesn't exist because I make for this condition is exist. So if this exists now give me false, so I will go to the else. The else say the file doesn't exist. I can return back here. Again, the file is not here. So I return back here to this. And I will go to this one and then I will execute it to create the file again. So run file file is already created it. Let's go back here. Yes, now it is created. Let's execute this get information. On this file. Yes, now tell us the file name again is a readable true, writable true, and that has nothing since it is an empty one. What we are learning so far, just know which method we should use, and this method from which class it is. So creating the file, executing different functions about how we can know different parameters, just we need the file class. Again, I have already the FileWriter class, we will say it later. Here is this class about the FileWriter that this is. Here we will see it. So I told you there is another class FileWriter. The FileWriter class, it has more than one method we can, it has different methods we can use it. So you have to create a file object to resemble or present the file or point to the file. But if you want to write in a file, you have to create a FileWriter class, which is this class. It has a constructor. We create an object from FileWriter. Sorry again. So there are, and after we create this FileWriter object, don't be mixed between the file object and the FileWriter object. Don't be mixed between both of them. So the file object, it is the object that we can use it to create a file, and it will point to the file, and there is different methods in this class which talk about the parameter. The FileWriter object, it's more about how we are going to later to write this in this file. In order to use the method write, we have to create an object from this method FileWriter. A rule always we have to say it. If we have a non-static method defined in any class, we need to create an object from this class to execute this method. So this is why we will create an object from the FileWriter one to execute these methods that they are already defined in this class. So the first method is write. There are some of them. There are more, by the way. It can take a string, array of character. This is the array of character that later you want to write on the file. It will take array of it will take a string. Okay. Not a special string, we'll see it how. Or it can take a string that you want to write it, and also from where you want to start and how long you are going to write from the string. So you can, because sometimes you are going to read the string maybe from the user or somebody else. You want to take just a block of the string. So when you will call, this is what we have already discussed at the beginning, polymorphism, which means that you will have for the same method different behavior, and you choose which behavior you want based on the parameter that later you are going to pass it. So if you just will take the string as it is and pass it, so you have this option. If you will take a part from the string, then you will use two different parameters. And don't forget that at the end there you have to flush the stream, the buffer of the stream, which means to flush it, because when you are going to take a string and then we will pass it to the file. So before we will close it, in order to be sure that this buffer doesn't have any more characters, we use the close. There is a method flush, but you don't have to use it, since when you use a close, it will call automatically to make a flashing for this and the closing to the writer object. Let's take an example. So I need now the FileWriter one. So the file already exists. I have already created it. I will not create it again. So I create the FileWriter. So this is why I need this. I have to need this class. Again, I need input-output exception. Maybe I will write to a file that I don't have permission or the file doesn't exist. So I create the writer file. Since now I create this object, I can use different methods. One of the methods is the write. We said that write has different behavior. One of it will take a special string to write it. So when I finish, I will call close, as I said, to flush the buffer, and then I will give to the user that you have already. So if I will do this, I should have this in my project. This is a try, which is the part that I want to execute it. Again, I have to make a cache for this input output as I do with the others. And in this case, I will make an error as occurred. Let's also go and try it. Write to a file, sorry. So if you remember that this file, I return back to it, the file is empty. File in Java might be tricky, but it is fun enough. So let's change this. I said, welcome Quora, and Quora is your nickname, yeah? Quora, are you still here?
Yeah, yeah.
It's your nickname.
Yeah,
but
that's
your original
my
name? What your original name?
Corazon.
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 Yes.
Is it correct?
Yep.
You told me it has a Spanish origin, yeah?
Yeah. I
Nice
think it's
name.
a Spanish word.
Yeah, nice name.
Thank you.
So if now we will execute this, it should add this to our file. So successfully wrote to the file, so there is no exception is taking place. Let's go now to the file and see what we have already here. Edit the file. Welcome Quora and JSON. So we are able to write in the file in this case. Jason, do you have a question?
No, I'm good. Awesome.
Okay. So as I said, don't be mixed between the file object and the writer object. The file object, it is from the class file. We will use it to create the file, and there is different method about getting the information and parameters. The write object, it's more about how we will write in the file in this case. Okay, let's go more about how we read now. So we have already data in the file, how we can read this data. So there are, by the way, more than one way to do it. There's a class named FileReader, I didn't mention here, but there is also the scanner. The scanner is simpler to use it, and we already know this. Because if you remember, we use it to get an input from the user, and also we can use it to send data to the file. So there are two main methods we can use it. Next line. Sorry, we can use it to read, not send. I'm sorry. We can use it to read data from the text file. The same methodology when we read data from the input from the user. So it's somehow the same methodology. So I will set next line, and I will double check it has next line. So and then again I make close. So this is why I mentioned the scanner here, because you are familiar with it. When we talk about Java input, I didn't mention the file reader, even though it already exists also a class named file reader. So we will use the scanner here. So if the file here, I have to create first a file object, I name it F1, and then I create the scanner one. And then, okay. So because here, I have to pass an object to the scanner, not a path. This is why I create the file object. The file object, either, as I told you, I told you before, so this will point to the physical file. So this is why I create a file, I name it F1, I pass it here. I give it the file name that we are using from the beginning. And then I created another scanner object. Again, it is a scanner object. So a scanner object, I pass the parameter for the constructor of the scanner, which is the file object, which will point to the physical file. I can pass the complete path or just give the file name here. If I will give just a file name here, in this case, I will expect the file to be in the same folder where my Java file it is now. And now I name it, this is the data reader. You can name it whatever you want. So the scanner object, now it knows where the file using the file object. So the scanner will read from the file now, and so there is, while I use has next line. I will make a loop to go to all lines because I expect to have different lines. And then I will set the string file data, just a string variable. Next line. Next line will give me line by line. All the characters in this line will be saved in a string variable. I name it file data. And now I can go ahead and save it in another place, or I print it out as I did here. When I will finish, I will make this. Here I use a file, a not found exception, but you can also use the input-output general exception. So it's up to you to be more specific or choose a specific one. So let's now go and try the code that we have it for today. So read from a file. As we did the scanner one, all this, as we have already discussed it. So run the file. You see, we can read welcome Quora and JSON. This is what we have already written before in the file. The final is how we can delete a file now. So to delete a file there, we have to return to the file class that we use. Go ahead, Jason. Ask.
Like for the file leading, can we go to like specific file line? Like let's say like go to file line 10 or line 15 instead of like one by one.
Yeah, there are more than method you can use it, yes. But also you can sometimes, yeah, you can do it. And then when you will go to the next line, sometimes also you need sometimes to search in this.
Yep.
In this case, you have to go to double check different string operation that we will have it. But normally when you go to read for a file, you can go to a specific line, yes. But since you are dealing with a file that you don't have enough information, what is the content, this is the case normally. What we will do that we will go line by line and we'll double check using any string operation to be sure that this is the line we needed. Go ahead, Quora.
We don't use or we don't ask if it is end of file, something like that. If we read the file.
Yeah, we have already asked something like this. If you return back here to the, before delete, yes, here it is, read. Here has next line. This function will return Boolean true, false. So if it doesn't have any more line, it will return false and you will go out of the loop. So you are making a loop and each time we will ask, does has next line? So if there is no any more line, we will go out. So the has next line method will return Boolean, true, false. If there is a next line, if there is true, there is no next line, we are at the end and the loop will stop.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're sure welcome. So we have this has next line and then we will have also the another one next line in this case. Now what about delete? So I said there is a method already exists in the file class. Again, I create an object that will point to this file. Just I call method, name it delete, and it will delete the file. So now this file that we have it here, we will delete it. So we will not have any more JSON and Cora. So we go to delete file, and then we said run it. So the file is deleted. Return back here. We don't have the file anymore here. So we deleted what we have already all done. It is what, like always, I'm trying in the lectures not make it as simple as I can to be more precise, since all the object-oriented concept you have it now. We are giving more operations, more classes, predefined that you can be aware about it in Java, because all the OOP concept you know about it now. Cora, I will have a very simple exercise for you to get bonus for today. And also you can practice it if you want. The Java exercise, it's store text file content line by line to an array. I will need array list. So what I want to do to ask you that, suppose you have a file and this file have different data. So you are going to take this data and save it in an array list. Do you want to practice this? Cora and Jason.
Yep.
I will try.
Okay, don't worry, I will be with you to help you on this. So what we will do now, we will stop recording and go to the give your own space for you. I will share with you also the lecture for today. And then we'll be back here.
Okay. Share screen. Yes. Can you see it?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. First, I just import all the things we might need. Maybe I didn't use it here, but yeah. And then in the main method, I wrote try and catch. So whenever the try is make some error, it print out that is error here. So inside the try block, I first made an array list here, and then read the file from the source. It was here, and I wrote 4 lines of text in the file. And if the file exists, it returns yes, and otherwise it not return but display yes and no. Yeah. And to read the file,
then you make a scanner to read from the file.
Yeah, here. And then for the while loop, as long as it has the next line, it read the line of the file and print out here, and then edit into the array list here, result, right? Edit, and after all the things are done, I just print out the result of the array list here.
Perfect.
So when I run it, this is the result. So this part is because the file has exist, and this is the each line of the file, and this is the array list that contain all the file contents.
Perfect. Amazing. You will get a very nice bonus. You have a full grade on the assignment. You have now the 30% that you needed for this. And also, this will help you in the project also. If you get more bonus, this will help you in the project. Okay, perfect. Cora, Jason, do you have any question for me today?
I think I'm good today.
Perfect.
Yep, me
Cora.
too. No, I don't have.
Enjoy the weekend. Take care, yeah? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.